Welcome, fellow synthesizer sickos. I'm Vulture, and tonight we're going to be checking out the new Novation Launchkey MK4, and this is the 61-key version of that. And specifically, we're going to be talking about everything you get for free when you get a launch key. So we're going to go through all of the software except for Ableton, because I'm a Reaper user, so I don't need Ableton 12 Lite. And there's also an audio enhancement plugin from the same company that gives Glamour. Let me pull this up. Klevgrand. And they make a cool audio enhancement plugin, but it is going to add latency. And because I'm live streaming this, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We're going to cover the rest of the stuff. First off, what we're focusing on is the first synth you're hearing is the SEM from Gforce software. And this synthesizer, we've featured it before on this channel. And yeah, it's one of the best sounding virtual analog synths on the planet. Let's just play a couple of patches so you can hear it. It's just an incredible sounding instrument. Let's check out a couple of more. This is a monophonic synth, SEM Bassation. And this is actually the patch that I started with to create the intro. So I'm going to turn that down just slightly. And things got real white there for a second. There we are. That looks about right. Walter, welcome. He says, if Novation is watching, in my Facebook group, one of the most requested things ever is a 76-key controller. Only Fatar offers one, but it lacks a lot of controller features. Yes. Poly aftertouch would be nice. So let's talk about that for a split second. I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. So these pads are polyphonic aftertouch pads, which is pretty incredible to get at this price point. These are about $300. The keyboard, though, is aftertouchless. And in fact, all of the launch keys in the Mark 3 and 4 range do not have aftertouch, not just polyphonic aftertouch, but not aftertouch at all. So that's something to know. This is a $300 MIDI controller, and as such, there are MIDI controllers for this price point that you can get that do have aftertouch. So something to be aware of. But what you're not going to find at this price point is this polyphonic aftertouch, these performance pads. And there's a bunch of other features. We're going to talk about the Arpeggiator built into this. We have a chord map so we can play different chords. For instance, this might not be the right synth for this. So let's go over to OB-EZ, another really great synthesizer. Here we go. And we could pull up, let's see, what do we have here? You know, so just like a really great sort of thing. Well, we could use the chord map and play that way. And then we have different modes, so we could use like an arpeggiator on that. I think. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. That's what it is. As you press the keys, it steps through, so. That's just the first chord map, right? It gets crazier as we keep going. For instance, we could do, what is it? I think we can do roll. So yeah, we can add some roll in here. And so check this out. And let's increase that further. actually rolling those keys. So really just incredible. And we can increase the spread. So if we want really wide chords, right? And all of these chords, we have completely different chord packs based off of whatever scale we set. So now we've gone off the reservation. It's probably a little crazy with the width that line. Yeah, so absolutely crazy stuff that you could do with that. It makes it very easy to play. And then, of course, you could just play normally, right? And this patch, I don't think has aftertouch enabled on it. But if it did, we could do polyphonic aftertouch with this, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, we've got chord inversions, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, so the SL series is the higher end version, and I'm hoping they come out with a Mark IV, because for me, something like a 61 key or a 70, it seems like a lot of people want that 76 key. An SL Mark IV 76 would be pretty cool, because the current SL3 Mark III, I think it's not the most up-to-date controller. Like, this feels like, okay, this is marketed right at 2025 pretty squarely. So, and I think everybody probably wants to know, what do I think about the feel? And I think it feels really good. Great. Again, I wish I had that aftertouch in there, but as far as it goes, I don't know if this is just me, but these keys are very sharp relative, like not in a painful way, but they have like a hard edge, and I love that very much. Like, I love the feel of a real sharp key when they're really rounded. For me, because I'm not a great natural piano player, I feel like I'm on the highway and I've had 14 mezcals and I'm slipping all over the place, like I'm not between the lines. I'm not where I need to be. So when you have these like really sharp keys, it's really a pleasure. You just get the feedback, which is great. And I think of all the key beds I've played, this would probably be my favorite in terms of just like the rectangular, angular nature of these keys. But for all I know, that might not be as good technically. Like, a great synth player might prefer rounded keys, more like something from like a Kwai K5000S or something, where it's like really round keys. And maybe that's better. Maybe that's better for playing. I don't know. Do we have an opinion on what kind of keys, or what? So yeah, you don't want to unfuck the future. Welcome to the stream. You don't want to drive down Mulholland Drive that way. So let's listen to some more sounds from, we're on OB-EZ now. We're going to cover everything. Of course, have an octave key so we could... Really great. And there's other features that are really tied in well to Ableton, and they have maps, I think, for Cubase and Logic and Pro Tools, but they don't have one for Reaper yet. Not that I was aware of. It didn't appear to be. And again, you get this incredible plugin for free when you buy Launchkey. So to put this into perspective, plugins of this quality, I think the full version of OB-E is about $200 or so. And what OB-EZ is just a simplified version of that, because that plugin is really complicated because every voice has its own complete set of parameters. Voice meaning every note you play is its own unique synthesizer. So they made an easier version of it with all of the best patches that are easy to control with just some simple stuff here. My point is, OB-E, $200 plugin, Novation Launchkey, $300 piece of hardware that you get this plugin and many more for free is really good. Synsonic says M-Audio Oxygen Pro 61 is a great alternative in the same range. It has aftertouch as well. Yeah, give them the old rectangular angular. I'm actually curious, guys. I don't want to take up too much time on this topic. I'll play some more bad music. What do you guys think when it comes to, I just want to know as a poll, keys, let's go with smooth versus Team Angular. I just want to know what you guys think. This is definitely Team Angular, this piece of gear. So what else do we get? We've got some other things from buddies over at Gforce Software. We've covered Gforce quite a bit on this channel, so I want to talk about some of the stuff you guys might not be as familiar with. So Parallel Orchestra comes from this really great Orchestral Tools company, and we have some really cool patches that you can play. And again, this is a $300 or 300 euros, so whatever that translates to into green American money. This you get for free also. So let's just check this out real quick. So this one's the shadowy full orchestra. Let's go down an octave, I think. So that is a pretty crazy patch, right? Just to have. You don't get that many different patches in here, but I'll go through all of them. They all sound really good. I believe, I could be wrong, don't quote me on this, but I believe Benjamin Wallfish's new product is through the same company, his strings product. And you can just hear like the quality is there in terms of the actual, of the samples are just great. So here we have a piano sound that I will play as good as I can play piano. Yeah, very dark. And then, you know, there's a whole range in here. But it does, you're right. It does, Mark, have that sort of really good for orchestral, I mean, it's just a beautiful sound, right? So then what else we have? We've got these, and of course we can open these up and we get different variations. So for the piano, it's the same, but for flautando strings, I hope I'm saying that right. We've got different things we can work with. We've got spiccato, swells, and actually, I think if I remove this and I just double click this, yeah, I get key switches too. So we can swap between all of them, either here or using key switches by going up the octave, right? So. Interesting to see that 64% of you guys are team smooth. So I'm in the minority here. This is a pretty angular key bed. I don't know, comparing, you know, Arturia native instruments. I used to have the complete, like the real tricked out one, and I actually sold it because I didn't like it too much. Real quick. So we got like spiccato too. If we want to go sailing on the 7 Cs or whatever, swells for really big, beautiful. I mean, I use Museo by Cinesamples, and I think it's great. However, I will say some of these sounds, they're so kind of good and expressive, you wouldn't necessarily, it's not like a full orchestral suite, but that's a beautiful sound I'd love to use again. So let's get rid of that for now. Again, I'm going to try to cover as much of this as I can. You know, this is what you think it is. You know, so that's a all sorts of orchestral sounds. What else? Check out this texture. Yo, by the way, can I get a scum cheers in the motherfucking chat? I appreciate you guys being here. If this is your first time, welcome. I'm Vulture Culture. We do a live stream every Wednesday night here on YouTube, and our community is the best community in Synthesizer Tube, hands down. There's no question in my mind. So welcome to the Vulture Culture. Cheers, guys. You know, we're talking more than just simple like, oh, here's a strings patch, right? Really cool stuff. So again, you get that for free. Let's talk about Slammer. So Slammer by Klevgrand is a really cool, completely different plugin than I was expecting. This is sort of like a found sound source type of a thing. Here, let me move it over so you guys can see what's going on here. So here's some sounds. And I'm not, oh, no, just up. I go down an octave. There we go. So. And you could hear it's very velocity responsive, sampled. And I recently did a review for Polyphonic Synth, which also has polyphonic aftertouch pads. And I would say that these are on par. I wouldn't say one's necessarily better than the other, but they do feel maybe a touch more responsive. real good big control over that velocity. It feels like it's tuned really well. I also just think the software is very good. Playing with the velocity is like doing a filter sweep where it's just like interesting to hear the little... Yes, and that's a good point, Synsonic. All of the launch keys come with all of this. So much slap on... I mean, that's got some nice... And so we could go into any of these sounds and change them out with something completely different if we wanted. So we got all of this different stuff in here, you know, and control over it if you want. There's a crowbar and a stick. Control all of this stuff. Right, and then we have some other stuff that might be useful, in particular a natural room reverb. And it could be a few different things. Moonshine I like a lot. Is it going to replace your Blue Sky? Maybe not, but it's good. And then Dirt, we have control over this really kind of vintagey sounding compressor distortion. Mid control, like what band you're using. Low end plus, I don't know. That was awesome. So you can take it into pretty industrial places. So just a very cool plugin. What I will say straight out of the gate, though, comparing this to Native Instruments, similar stuff, Arturia, similar stuff, this is not an all-purpose drum plugin. And I think that is something they should consider adding to their lineup, even if they had one of Gforce's drum plugins, like Icon Drum or DMX. Something like that wouldn't be a bad thing to put into this package, because as it stands, this is a very cool plugin, but if you're making EDM, this ain't going to work for you, which I imagine is a lot of their target market, right? And it's kind of almost like maybe it would be really good for indie, but even then, I don't know if I'd want to use it on like every song. Kame, welcome. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Welcome to the stream. How are you? All the way from Brazil. It's an honor to have you here. So that's Slammer. Let's cover, and then the rest is the wonderful products from Gforce. So I haven't had AXXESS before on this channel. So let's go ahead and check out some of these sounds. So, I mean, really where the Novation Bundle stands forward is the inclusion of Gforce products, because they're so good. Console 1 is a VST that controls this Console 1 hardware controller I have off camera here. And that just allows me to have access to EQ, compression, volume. It's nice actually, because I can just ride the volume of the plugin directly from some piece of hardware to my left without actually having to go take my hands onto a mouse. I can just fuck around with this. So pretty cool. I don't know if it's, you know, I'm still kind of mixed on if I like Console 1 or not. funky wah. Wait, turn that off. So very beautiful sequencer, but this patch alone, Berlin Dream Sequence, is just so freaking good. Like it's worth it for this patch. Get that sort of sound so good. It really highlights how great, again, I've said it with their stuff so many times, but the resonance on their plugin sounds great. I'm almost like, whenever they make a monophonic synthesizer polyphonic in software form, I almost hate it in a weird way because it sounds so good. I had an Odyssey in the studio for a few days and it's got such a beautiful sound. But when you hear this, it's like I would have never have guessed that comes from an Odyssey, but I've never heard a polyphonic Odyssey. Well, I mean, in a sense, the Chroma player behind me is kind of one, but it sounds so good. I'm glad you find them helpful, Kame. Yeah, full version of AXXESS. So you get the full version of everything. I guess you could say that OB-EZ isn't the full version, right? Because there is still OBE. But I think for many, many people, like, I get why OBE is not just given away for free. That's a crazy piece of software. Hey, so this is also pretty cool. We're going to talk more about the arpeggiator that's built into Launchkey, but why don't we just go back to the chord map real quick and let's make sure it rolls all the way off, right? And we'll just go back to Adventure 1 and we'll go just explore a couple of different things here. Now, here's what's interesting is the arpeggiator's on in AXXESS. So it's going to arpeggiate out these chords. Just go do a little bit more exploring here. I want something that's a little bit more exotic. So. All right, let's go try Adventure 2. Yeah, we're getting some interesting chords like sus2 chords, 6 chords. You can hear when I play, I always play these like real bent chords. Right, so to my ear, I need to hear some, I get real tired with the triads, right? So we have this cool sound. But let's say that's a little too lame, right? Because, I mean, it's a great patch, don't get me wrong, whoever made this patch, but we've all heard that ascending arpeggiato so much that maybe that gets boring. So let's go into the sequencer here and turn the arpeggiator off. So now if I play it, we just get the chord. Of course, if I already showed that, we also have we can step through different inversions. We've got bass and chord, so that's like an oompa type thing. Like we've got arpeggiate down. We've got inversions down. In order setting, what's the order that you'd be talking about? And of course, chord split. basically octaves again. But let's take it even further now. So let's go into the arpeggiator, right? We'll turn that off. And if I go into Shift Arp Pattern, now we have our arpeggiator pattern. So let's say we want to make that more complex, right? So now we're going to get this pattern. Okay. What we can then do is, let's see, do we have portamento in this one? Where is it? If I put it in mono, can I get a portamento out of this plugin? Do you see it? If not, I know we have it over on the other one. But what we could do is say we could tie a couple of notes together. So now that note holds over. So if we're in a like a monophonic, is it spread? No. There's definitely somewhere in here there should be a there's got to be a portamento glide. Well, that's gliding them all. So anyways, we've got that function, and then we also have accent, right? So if we wanted to accentuate the first and fifth notes there, so I don't know if on this particular patch the velocity is being used here, but we could introduce it, right? So if we wanted to modulate the frequency by velocity, we could just increase that amount, and then oh, I see what you're saying. Well, so obviously when I'm using the arpeggiator in this sort of way, it controls that. And then as you go through the different, back to the chord map over here, as we go through the different adventures, I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen, but it says adventure and explore. These are 8 banks of 8 different sounds, and they do have things like different chord shapes that go beyond just your typical like triad-y type stuff, and the order can be different too. Yeah, so very cool. Okay, and then so the last thing in function here, or those are the 2 things with function. Oh, ratchets too. So we could add a ratchet on a couple of these. Which is pretty great. And then one thing I was having trouble with is getting out of this. I just want to get to like back to this. Okay, I guess I got it. So you can see that the arpeggiator in this is actually very powerful. It's quite cool. And I think the chord map's very neat also because of the aftertouch that you get from these pads. So for me, this is probably where I'd spend a lot of my time because it's such a unique feature as compared to other places, especially with the roll and everything. So let's jump over and play around with that real quick, actually, with another free plugin you get, which is Basstation. So we checked this out on stream, I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, something like that. So we won't spend too much time. If you want, you can go back and watch my live stream, I think from 2 weeks ago, where we checked this out. And this had so many great patches in it. Just... So this would be one where if we use portamento, right? And we, what do we put it in? Single mode, right? And then we use the arpeggiator, and then we go into Shift Arp Pattern, and we can see kind of what we have. Probably have to turn that portamento down quite a bit, I guess. And let's just control maybe not anybody's favorite pattern I've ever programmed, but just it's an interesting thing to be able to take it into a completely different place than you're expecting. And let's just try to get out of that. Shift. Yeah, there we go. going so fly. Dropping doves. So a lot of the sounds in Basstation, as you might guess, are going to be those sorts of like acidy type sounds. Let me see. Thick acid might be. You really get that power from the drive. Yeah, so just a really incredible plugin. Everybody needs a 303. How's it going, Parbs? I see you've changed your icon, so that's pretty cool. Let's talk about what else do we have here? Let's jump back over to SEM here. I want to get up another mono sound. Let's pick a couple of different ones. So again, we have the Arpeggiator in here, so we could kind of go into the chord map and see. And then if we, you know. So in a way, that's your order mode, Tron Dog, right? You could hear how, depending on which one of those I played, we got different things. And then if we just beautiful. Beautiful little twinkle dust there on that one. So one of the things I love about the chord maps is I'm pretty familiar with music theory, or the basics of it anyways. So what I like though is, you know, I don't always go to like seventh dominant chords. Like to me, they're a little bit whatever, but like when you hear them here, they can be quite beautiful. And so it also sort of, even if you're not the type of person, maybe, I guess what I'm saying is maybe I went into it a little snotty with a feature like a chord map. I'm like, what? You can't play a fucking chord? And I'm a terrible piano player, as you guys get to catch every Wednesday night live. I'm not good at it, but I got the general idea, right? And I think a lot of people, when you look at something like a chord map, you're like, oh, okay, so that's so they can play, let's see, how I just turn it off. There we go. Is that off? I guess my point is like, for some people, I'm like, what, they can't play C major? They need a key for that, right? Like, but really being able to have these interesting chords. And you have some stuff. Yuki the Synth Dragon, how are you doing? Where was it? Yeah, so you've got an E minor 7th and an E 7th. So, you know, that's out of key, right? That's not a diatonic chord. You've got both a major and a minor. So there's some really cool sort of, to me, that's almost got like a Debussy sort of tone to it. And I wouldn't normally have gotten there if it hadn't been for something like this. So I think that's super cool. Yeah, and you can use it with the ARP. So there's so much that goes on. So if I kick the ARP on 2 and I kick the ARP off here, that's one thing I was reading online, that this doesn't send through the ARP on Novation. Did you mean the ARP on the actual plugin, or? Am I doing something very silly, Yuki? By the way, I love your channel, Yuki. I think you make incredible content. I always look forward to seeing whenever you've got a new video out. For anybody, I'm sure all of you guys are already subscribed, but to me, Yuki the Synth Dragon, if I just want a video that's like it's like a warm comfort synthesizer video, like it's some beautiful reverb and some beautiful analog or what have you goodness. So very much into it. So let me know if I'm doing something wrong, but it seems like the chord map can't get shot through the arpeggiator on the actual hardware. You have to use that sort of thing. Yeah, and it does have that low poly jungle DMB pads type vibe too, for sure. Chilling with the dogs watching Game of Death. That sounds like a much more exciting time than this, for sure. But it's good to see you. Can I get a cheers to everybody out there? Thank you guys for hanging out with me tonight. So yeah, I guess that's where I was kind of going with this, is we've just got so much going on in here. We've got fixed chords too, by the way. So that's like, I believe if I hold a chord, so let's go like, what is it? If I hold it. Right, it's now, it's stored that chord in memory. So that's how you can do that parallel harmony type of deal. So also just a fun way to do that. So yeah, there's just a lot that can be done here. Also different like scale modes. So you can set what scale you're in. If I go to scale mode, I can change that. So like now I'm in E major. So I don't know if that's obvious what's happening here because I have the arpeggiator on. Let's just go with a different patch here. Yeah, so now this is like easy mode on a synth. So if I play a note out of key here, it's the same note, right? Which is pretty crazy. And then we can change the mode. So if we wanted to take it to E Lydian, for instance, and you can't play out of key, which is a beautiful thing. Michael HR, welcome to the stream. Does it have multiple banks? Multiple banks of what? Are we talking about the plugin or the hardware? So sorry. Yeah. By the way, Twin Cities, thank you very much. I appreciate you for the super chat there. I appreciate that. And I think I saw you ask earlier and I skipped past it. I apologize. No, I don't have a Discord. In fact, I'm very, pretty minimal as far as this YouTube channel goes. I pretty much have the members only section. I would kill for YouTube to allow the members only section to be more like Discord, where members of the channel could chat and have their own conversations. I'd love to be able to get a thing going where we could all share patches. I think that would be great. Maybe I'll have to get a Discord or something at some point. Currently, I am at my like kind of maximum level of stress that I can handle. So it's not an immediate thing. Death by Media, welcome to the stream. How's the keybed on the Mark IV series? Anything you can compare it to? Yeah, so we had this discussion earlier. Technically, 64% of the people who watch this channel prefer smooth edged keys, and I am in the minority. I like a real sharp bitch. I love sharp women and I love sharp keys. And these are very sharp, very rectangular. They have a nice soft, sort of powdery feel to them. And then just regular old plastic keys. I think it feels really good. I'm not a keybed expert. I think of all, I wouldn't call myself an expert in anything, but at least with vintage synths and sound design, I can kind of chip in to the conversation. Vintage synth keybeds are extremely clacky. Even the best of them are not great by modern standards. So for me, this is like the Rolls Royce, but for all I know, I could be like, I guess I'm saying take my words with a grain of salt. If it's good enough for me, then it's a kind of a low bar to clear. I would say this feels better, slightly better than my usual MIDI controller, which is an Alesis VI61, I think is the model number. And that one feels great. This one feels slightly chunkier in a good way. So stuck with my DX7. Yeah. How's it going, Kieran? Welcome to the stream. Yes, I definitely have acquired more Baringophobia from Yuki as well. No, it's not a silly question at all. So this isn't, only the pads are poly aftertouch, and the key bed isn't even aftertouch, which I'm going to get into later on in the video, the pros versus cons, like I like to do towards the end. So we'll go through that. Absolutely. Hey, Chuck, how are you doing? Running the Boston Marathon. My favorite water influencer. So my favorite story about Chuck King is he started reviewing water on Amazon, and then all of a sudden, like, water bottle companies started like sending him free products for him to review the water, and so he's a water influencer. I'm glad to hear Jackson loving all the different sounds. This is kind of cool just for getting those types of sounds, because it's hard to get that sort of chaotic thing otherwise. What are some other things? We can filter out scale. So I think this is if you play a wrong note, it just cucks you, right? It just fucking like it's a pretty brutal thing. I don't know why anybody would ever want to have that on. So yeah, there's different ones. Easy scale, I think, is probably what I would leave it on for this sort of a thing. And then all of this then goes on to affect what's going on over at the chord map as well, I believe. So we can change I think we can change the scale in here. That's a chord octave. I thought we could change the scale. So if I go back to scale and I change this to D major and I go back to the chord map, I think there's a way to change the scale, but maybe you just have to change the adventure. Then you put on the arpeggiator and DW8000 and SQ80 are pretty much the only two vintage key beds that I don't like. Like, I'm like, those are noticeably worse than I'd like them to be. So is perfectly understandable to us, so thank you very much. I'm glad you find them helpful. Brass tines for contact instead of rubber strip, but aftertouch usually fails on them. Only key bed of its type, I think. I know the DW8000 also has, I think it's the brass tines as well, which is an issue, because when they start to go, it's not wonderful. It could be a more difficult thing than just your typical. I will say it again. I do not think Behringer is an evil word around here. I have my opinions for sure, but I also am glad that people are getting really cool synthesizers at a reduced price. I think Yuki's videos have influenced a lot of us, and I actually, before I did my big best synths of 2025 video for this year, I had to I did my best to not rely solely on Yuki's videos to inform my opinion. I feel like when OB-EZ was coming out, I saw some videos that seemed more negative about it, but when I really just tried to comb YouTube, I didn't find that many negative videos about OB-EZ. And same thing with Pro 800, it seems pretty good. So as far as BX1, I think what you said, it's more than a clone. I think Behringer does best when they elevate a product. Like DeepMind 12 started off as a Juno 106 clone, but then they kind of did something else with it. And I hope BX1 is them going in that direction again. So that would be my opinion. So we got that beautiful Gforce software reverb. It's just a very great thing. All of the different controls. So what else? I think we've covered all of the software you get with it, of course, other than Ableton Lite. And yeah, so I'll pull up some more of this parallel orchestra here. Let's make sure I had that record enabled. And let's pull up a different patch again. Let's get, let's go back to, I want to go to the delicate piano and try some of the ARP stuff with that. So let's go. Am I doing this right? Yeah, and then if we just add like a lot of roll to that, so if I'm back and add some roll. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Wow. Feel like I'm in Breath of the Wild, you know? Mushy feeling. I don't know. I'm convinced, Yuki, you can feel things that I cannot. Again, as a vintage synth guy, all vintage synths are pretty trash when it comes to feel. Even the nice ones. I mean, aside from, like, I actually think the D50, DX7, Alpha Juno feel really great, but most of them, even the expensive ones, aren't great. Mushy, yeah, I could see it, but honestly, I don't think if you'd used that descriptor before, like, it's almost like a placebo thing or something, like when they put out like fried or dried dates and you know, like sweet meadow herbs and stuff before you have a sip of wine, and they're like, do you taste the you know, the, I don't know, strawberries or whatever, like, you know what I mean? They like prime you. What's the phrase? What do they call that, where you are primed to suggest something? Like, to me, I don't think I would have noticed it, if I'm being completely honest. But again, I don't think I, you know, that. Can you drums, chords, and lead? So you could do them separately. So it can be, you can use it in a drum mode. So again, if slammer real quick. Right, you can use it as a drum thing. And then you could go into chord map and then you could even, you know, if you want to. And go through that whole, you know, process as well. So, yeah. There's nothing wrong with, I don't think you're strange about it, Yuki. I think I literally am touch ignorant, would be the way I would say it. Or like, touch challenged, in the way that I don't really think my fingers are acquainted with good feeling gear, unfortunately. So what's my opinion on BS2, the Basstation 2? Is that what you mean, Twin Cities? I did do a full review 2 weeks ago on the channel. The short version of it would be that it would not be my recommendation for anybody's first analog synth plugin. It's got a very different sort of sound. You know, for me, it's not my thing, but especially if you're like 90s-y, that might be a very cool thing. So for sure, yeah, lubed. Let me see. I'm trying to catch up with the chat here real quick. So sorry. Ah, that's a beautiful. And then we just did explore once more. We could go one more. There's some really good chords in here. Let's see if we can take that like a further adventure. Wait, let's go. I want to go adventure Okay, Adventure 5, and then let's explore 8. Ooh, beautiful. I can't imagine you. I'm sure you could, Mark. And in fact, I had to put this to Omni for it to receive from over here. Luca asked, what is the headphone and mic you're using? I'm using Biodynamic DT770s, I believe. I actually was using OB-EZ headphones last week, and I'm going to sell them because they're not for me. They're very good, though. But I have special needs, obviously, when it comes to being able to live stream. And the microphone I'm using is a mod mic. Vanessa asks, are there any obnoxious sounds? Yeah, chord-wise, they all seem pretty nice. I want to increase the roll even further. I wish we could route velocity to the roll. Right? So that's like the type of thing you could do even on a vintage synth like the Matrix 6 behind me, where you can route velocity to attack time, you know? Yuki, I mean, the DT770s are absolutely a standard for a reason, and that's why I use them, is basically because everybody else uses them, and therefore my work as a mixing and mastering engineer should be kind of whatever. But recently, on a recent project I did for an artist, I started to really feel like I'm starting to get like kind of phantom high end, because I think the buyers push a little too much crispiness and to make things sound really good. But what happens when you're mixing and mastering is you don't compensate for that. You're making things slightly dull. And I think it's time for me to step up. So I actually just got some Dan Clark audio, Dan Clark Aeon closed backs. I'm going to try those out for a bit and see how that goes. Mark Anderson Vintage, can you use this control Omnisphere? Yes, you could. So actually, why don't I go ahead and show you that real quick? Let's go ahead. Yeah, they have a lot of top end. So let's go ahead and insert Omnisphere here. And it's just going to take a second, I think. Hopefully it pops up. Okay, everything, are we okay? Everything fine? Did I do something wrong? Nope, we're good. Just kind of had like a little bit of it got a little upset at me for a second here. Okay, so a part of it is that I loaded a track template, which loads more than just that. So I've got console 1 set up already. One of my favorite patches, echo signs, is the default. So let's say I wanted to control a lot of the stuff here. So for instance, the pitch shift. How many knobs? Oh, I've actually got 8 knobs and faders here. So why don't I just do this real quick? So MIDI CC learn, MIDI CC learn, MIDI CC learn, MIDI CC learn, MIDI CC learn. I think they actually kind of like made, that's another thing I've never really talked about with, oh, I fucked this up. I already fucked this up. Let's go backwards. This particular piece of software, see, I double learned it. MIDI CC learn this, and then MIDI CC learn you to there, and then, yeah, there we go. So I think one of the reasons they built this the way they did, where you've got these sort of like macro controls that change per patch. So think about that for a second. Most software has like macro controls, right? But if we change, I don't want to do it right now because it might fuck it up a little bit, but essentially like we changed patches, we'll have a completely different layout here. But anyways, like you can learn all of this stuff and get control over that. So no echo. And then like how much pitch shift we want and what interval that is. Right, it's very cool. So you can control it directly from the hardware. I'm going to just go through and unlearn. I don't think you necessarily need to do this, but I'm going to just go ahead and do it anyways, just in case, before I change patches. So let's go load up a completely different type of patch. Let's go and check out some of the... Let's check out some of these Twisted Trees patches, for instance. I don't know, let's pick one. Okay, so again, we've got different controls here. And the way that Dioko Stoko did this one was different, where it's kind of the same thing. So we could probably MIDI learn these and get different sorts of vibes and then change patches. So let's just do that. So hype and sub. So hype is... and sub is that sub oscillator in there. Then we have our mixer. So these are all of our sound sources, so we could hear them all individually, right? So let's turn that off and turn this. Right, and then we could MIDI learn these guys, so we could just take the space out and the sub to the amount of space and the amount of sub on that space. So that's all well and good. Now let's see if it when I change patches. Yeah, so I've still got control over that. Still just control how much sub we want to push into the reverb and all of that stuff, so it could get really, really powerful with what you can do. So yeah, sorry, just a kind of a fun little deep dive into what could be done with Omnisphere, and in particular the sonic extensions. Okay. Oh, I've never actually played Myst 3. I played the first two, and I'd love to check it out because I love Myst so much. And in fact, one of the keyboards I have, Proteus MPS plus Orchestral, was the original synth that, blanking on his name, the guy who composed it, Robin Miller, the original Myst, he only used this one key bed. And so I have it, and it's just like the moment you turn it on, it immediately feels like Myst. And they often trade for, I think I got mine for like $300 or something. That's totally underrated keybed. Great feeling keybed, by the way, aftertouch and everything. So, you know, really great vintage keybed, if that's something, or keyboard anybody wants to get. So I want to talk about pros and cons now. I'm going to go away from Omnisphere, just in case anyone was confused, by the way. You don't get Omnisphere for free. I probably should have stayed with just what you get for free, but it was an interesting question. Let's go pick a new sound. Ah, this is good. And we could also do the... all sorts of fun stuff, but... only thing I'm going to do is turn the decay down a bit, so that you guys can hear me a little bit better. So give me all the history on New Beat for sure. I love New Beat music. So let's talk about who this is for and who it's not for. So let's start off with some people I think it's for. I think with any MIDI controller at this mid-tier. So there used to be like kind of two tiers of MIDI keyboards, cheap MIDI keyboards and expensive ones. And this is this emerging category of like mid-tier. So this isn't the most tricked out version of a key bed. So for anybody who wants to make music and feels like something cheaper, like for instance, here, I probably shouldn't show a competitor brand here, but I just want to show you, for example, you know, I have an Arteria Mini Lab here, and I've used it on this channel before, and it's perfectly good. It's got the mini keys. There's a 25 and 37 mini key version of this as well. And it's fine. It does what it's supposed to do. It too has pretty good pads. They're not polyphonic aftertouch. But this does feel better than this when it comes to making music. And I think a lot of the times people, they get their first MIDI controller, and I almost don't recommend for people to get something like a 25 key MIDI controller, because I'm like, what are you really going to do with that? You know, like, get a proper key bed. Then again, not everybody is interested in playing keys anymore. In fact, it seems to be going the way of the dinosaurs. Everybody's just going sequencer, and that's fine too. So the first person this keyboard might be for, I would say, is someone who wants a good MIDI controller that feels like you can make real music on it. This certainly meets that criteria. I think this is the most expensive one at $300, but I think the 49 and cheaper are like, you know, closer to $200. And that's a pretty sick price point in terms of the feel, and the quality really couldn't be better as far as what I would expect at this point. Another person that this could definitely be for is anybody who uses Ableton Live as their main DAW, because there are a lot of features that are sort of integrated into, if you're using Ableton, when it comes to controlling Ableton's built-in sequencer, right, and looping. So if you want to do like live looping and stuff with Ableton, this is a really good feature. Now, I'm not an Ableton guy, so that for me doesn't apply. And so that would be something else I would caution. If you are DAW what's the word I'm looking for? Agnostic, right? You don't really have a DAW that you love yet. Well, this comes with Ableton Live Lite. So you could use it as a way to check that out too. And of course, many people do use that particular DAW. So for me, it's probably best if you're using that, because you don't get access to like a sequencer or something, where the higher end version you do. Todd, you have a great night. Jim, welcome to the stream. I'm glad to know. I'm surprised you didn't know, Yuki, that yours has the free stuff. Yeah. Yes, a split second, 33 RPM instead of 45. Yeah, yeah, but this does not have aftertouch, and none of the launch keys do. But the pads have poly aftertouch, like Yuki is saying. Taste of Sugar. Yeah, that's all. I love that track from back in the day. So as far as that goes, it's certainly good. Let's talk about some people this might not be for. I personally actually am kind of kicking myself, because when Novation was kind enough to reach out to me to send this, I said, well, I want the 61 key version, because I mean, look behind me, it's all 61 keys, right? And that's kind of just what I'm used to. So of course I was like, if it's not too much trouble, I'd prefer because vintage synths and stuff, I'm just used to that. I actually don't think this is the best price point, you know, or if you want to get a launch key, I kind of don't know if the point would be to go for a full 61 key bed, because it doesn't have aftertouch. So that makes me think, in a weird way, the sweet spot might be the 25 and 37 key variants, because they're like, I think the mini key 25 is like $200 cheap. It's like $119 or something. It's like dirt cheap. Same quality, and you get the polyphonic aftertouch. So for me, this controller is all about the polyphonic aftertouch pads. That's clearly the standout feature that you're not going to get from other keyboards at this price point. For me, as a big aftertouch player, I know not everybody is, so that's going to be your kind of deciding factor, I would say. But at this price point, you can get an Alesis VI61 for $300, and it's got velocity and aftertouch. You can get an M Audio Oxygen Pro or Pro Oxygen 61 for $300, and that has velocity and aftertouch. And Nectar makes a 61 key velocity and aftertouch controller at this price point. So I will say that I am surprised that this, I understand that it doesn't have polyphonic aftertouch, of course, but I'm surprised that there's actually a keyboard at the $300 price point now that doesn't have aftertouch at all. On the other hand, Arturia's Keylab Essential 61 key, similar price point, a little bit cheaper than this, also doesn't have aftertouch. So we're living in this unique time where a feature like aftertouch that used to be something that you could find on pretty much every $200 MIDI controller is no longer at this kind of like $300 price point, because they've increased the quality of everything so much. The feel is great, and they've added so many features and like things like the arpeggiator, the chord maps and all of that. But to hit the point where they can sell these realistically for $300, they've had to pull that aftertouch out. So that's a very that is what it is. And for me, that's going to be sort of your deciding factor is, do I need aftertouch? If the answer is yes, then probably the M Audio controller would be the one that I would go for. I had a friend who had one, and I swear to God, I thought that was the best key bed. And I love the aftertouch on it, because as you press down on the keys, you have like a lot of room that you feel with the aftertouch. Like, it's great. It's kind of like the Ensoniq TS10, where you can feel like a little bit of range on the aftertouch. It's really great. Now, if you love aftertouch, I still think the 25 or 37 key version might be for you, because we all sometimes need a little dinky keyboard for what if you got a long flight from California to Florida, or from somewhere to Europe or whatever, and you want to sit and make some music on your laptop while you're going, right? Well, you want something that's smaller like this, like a 25 key. And I think then something like Launchkey Mark IV is incredible, because these pads become like so much more useful at that form factor. Because then it's like, you can use this if you want to play like a lead, but if you want to play your chords, they're up here. If you want to do an arpeggiator thing, it's all, that's a different kind of workflow than someone who's going to be sitting in like a studio. And for a guy like me, this is my master controller. Whatever is sitting on my desk in front of my computer screens, this has to be my master controller. So I'm going to want it to sort of be fully featured as far as this goes. I hate to say it, this part doesn't matter to me as much if this part doesn't tick all of the boxes for me. So I don't think this product was the right one for me. And I think I should have asked for the 25 or 37 key variants on it, because I do think that's where this shines. And if you're going to spend the money on a 61 key MIDI controller, I would just say you probably want to get one that's got aftertouch. Now, I'm maybe in the minority. Actually, I want to ask the poll. I want to do a poll and ask you guys again another question. How often do you use aftertouch? And I'm going to say a lot or a little, never as the options. Just a lot or a little. No in between. Because I know a lot of people were probably like, well, sometimes I use aftertouch. If that's you, I want you to say a little, never. I use aftertouch quite a lot. But I remember at some point, I really didn't use aftertouch almost at all. I just sort of did everything sort of raw, and now I've become, especially with the vintage synths, I've become much more of a aftertouchy type guy. So let me see, let me catch up with the chat here. Yuki says, I mean, to be fair, Nautilus 61 is almost $500 more with the aftertouch option. Yeah, so the whole market is kind of wonky. DeCarmac asks, for an economy tray table, wouldn't a Korg Nano Key Fold be a better choice? I'm not familiar with the Fold, but like the old Nano Key for me is probably just a little too small. If you can bring a laptop that's about the size of a 25 key controller, you could probably get a bag that you have your laptop and your controller in. That's probably what I would do. Does this work with MIDI too? That's a great question. I mean, nothing about this keybed to me, aside from the polyphonic aftertouch, screams MPE. So yeah, but like what Synthsonic was saying, that's, you know, the launch key is like a hotel keyboard when you're traveling something. Pitch wheel more, so maybe if this pitch wheel is feeling mushy, then maybe that's more of an issue as well. 16-inch or bigger screen, yeah, probably. I mean, want a 16-inch? Are you saying this screen down here? I mean, this, to me, the screen's fine. I don't have any problem with it. I can stand back. I can read it from here, and I'm, you know, an arm length and a half or so. Maybe if I'm like way back here, I can still read it. I've got pretty decent vision though for how badly I've treated my body over the years. I wouldn't say my vision's too bad. So it looks like most people, if you haven't voted yet, please vote real quick. I'd just be curious to go ahead and vote, even if you're not sure. Just to give me a rough idea here. I would want as big of a screen as possible, but I'm broke because I've bought so many vintage synths. I can't afford a screen. It's one of those things where you can't, like, you cut the corners on everything else so you can buy that big badass new synth that you got. I haven't eaten anything but ramen noodles since I started this YouTube channel. So control pedal inputs. Yeah, it's got a sustain pedal. I think it's only a sustain pedal. Yep, just a sustain pedal. That's it. So again, no way to do expression pedal modulation. So very minimal on that front. Here's another thing. I don't know how much time people actually, like what I was just doing with Omnisphere, where they actually map the stuff to their keybed and things like that, where they'll actually like control filters and things with that. I do sometimes. I probably do it more than most, but I don't think a lot of people do it. And so that would be another interesting little point here, is even on my little dinky Arturia keybed, I've got 16 knobs, right? And on my VI61, I think I've got a bunch of buttons and knobs and things. And one thing that might not be obvious is many keybeds have knobs and faders, right? They'll have 8 faders and 8 knobs. But these knobs are dedicated to controlling what's going on with the actual software running in the keybed. So they're not really available to you to use as like, oh, I want to MIDI learn the attack decay. I mean, I suppose you could. So 60% of you guys don't use aftertouch that often. You either use it a little or never, and only 40% of you use it a lot. So that makes this a very interesting or compelling buy, because then I could recommend to the 60% of you who don't use it that often, you do have it up here with the pads. If you ever felt like doing, you know, a little hydrasynthy type thing with some software, you could do it with the pads. And so you do have aftertouch there. And then you just use the keybed more like a piano where there's no aftertouch, and that's pretty good. Yeah, it's a switch only. Yeah, so there's no, you can't expression pedal it, unfortunately. So I think that's one of those things where when it comes to that, there's kind of, I'm kind of two minds here. I think it's a very good product. I think that the feel is great. I know some people don't like it when the pitch mod wheels are up here. I don't mind it at all. I think it's probably best for someone who already uses Ableton, or if you're a beginner and you don't really know what DAW to use, it comes with Ableton, so you could go in that direction. So for certainly, Novation really has made their name nowadays for making those 16x16 pad controllers that just integrate with Ableton so well. And I think that heritage is shown here with this controller. It feels very much like a couple of rows off of one of their launch pads. And I think that's great. I mean, I think that's where this controller shines, as someone who's already kind of used to that type of workflow. I think where it falls a little flat for me is in terms of expressiveness. And, you know, and it's interesting as far as I'm aware, and I looked it up before the stream, it might have been already addressed in some firmware or something, but there isn't a way for me to route the chord map through the arpeggiator. You have to like route the chords through an arpeggiator on a piece of software or something, which is also fine. Oh, the components editor does let you map the knobs. So, okay, so then there's that. That's cool. Yeah, that would be also an interesting one, Dub. Why don't we do that too? Let's see. I'll just say sequencing, and play by hand. So the question would be, which do you prefer, sequencing or playing by hand? I'd be curious to know too. Here, do I? I was hoping I could just MIDI learn this and then, you know. I think, okay, so I obviously should have phrased the question, but let me say, if you chose sequencing, I would say that should be your primary way of doing stuff. And I mean, my first records, I didn't play shit, you know, I just, you know, the MIDI controller was only here just so I could audition sounds, and then I literally drew everything in to my DAW back in fucking 2008 or something like that. So, you know, I think that's fine. If you ever play by hand, I think you're like on a recording, that would be where I would say, like, because I know plenty of synth pop artists, I'm not going to name names, who even if they play the piano, they'll like record it, but then they quantize the shit out of it and it ends up being a sequence anyways, right? But it seems like a lot of you guys play by hand, so interesting. 75% of you guys said play by hand, so that's also, I wouldn't have guessed. I honestly would have guessed more people use sequencers, but I'm sure this channel probably biases in a certain direction, right? Patch. Media, that's funny. 100%. I mean, I think the Oberheim stuff from Gforce is just about as good as you're going to get. I don't think it's going to replace your TO5, but as far as something that you can, you know, pop open in your computer quickly. And there might be, you know, that's one of my favorite things about VSTs is that they have so many patches often. And a lot of the Gforce patches are worth it just for the patches. And then you could maybe go, oh, okay, you know, I hear what they're doing and you can see what's going on. And then you program it on your hardware analog synth and now you've got something really special. I would certainly think the Summit and the TO would be pretty, like, if you had to pick two synths nowadays, that's not a bad combo. It's not a bad combo. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, so I think that's probably a good place to call it for tonight. I am very excited to have had this synthesizer, hardware in the studio. And big thanks to Novation for sending it over. I think, like I said, I'm a little upset that I don't think it's the perfect product for me because I'm an aftertouch guy. And I think what I should have asked for would have been maybe the 37 key or the 25 key, just because, and that would be what I'd recommend probably to most people, is that feels really good. I think even the 49 is cheaper by a bit, like I think $80 cheaper, so you have to look it up online. Of course, prices are going to change depending on when you watch this video, but even that's like $80 is a lot of money you could spend on something else. I just don't know the utility of buying a 61 key bed that doesn't have aftertouch. For me, that's kind of crazy. I did it when I got a Chord Prologue, right? And I love that synth, but that was kind of something everybody knocked about it, and that had a whole synth built in. Of course, it costs a lot more too. So Mighty Pinto, how are you doing, my friend? I think that's a great thing. I want you to keep making awesome vids, Yuki. I love your videos very much. And thank you for hanging out tonight in the live stream. If there's ever any sort of collaboration you would like to do in the future, I'm a big fan of your channel, so it'd be great to do something like that. My schedule is super busy for the next few months, but you know, we could get around to something at some point, and that would be really awesome. I love that. I need to get some sleep too. Thank you, Hypothesis. I think it's, in summation, I think Novation Launchkey is really great for someone out there. Turns out more of you guys than not don't use aftertouch that often, so from that perspective, a big gripe for me isn't a gripe for the majority of you. So then something like this becomes super compelling, especially for that use case of what I was saying, where if you use aftertouch sometimes, not that often, polyphonic pads become super cool, because then it's like, oh, okay, so now we're off in that land, and they do feel really great. The pads are good. So I'll give them that. Widow, thank you so much. And yeah, so with that, continue to be excellent, guys, and I will see you next week. Next week? I will see you soon. Take care. Bye. I'll be back next week for sure. Wednesday at 9.